The Amazing Spider-Man issue 36 was released on November 14th, 2001, a little over 2 months past the attacks on September 11. With a solid black cover, it shows the Marvel Universe reacting to the tragedy, as their flagship hero monologues about being united in grief. From a publisher's standpoint, it makes sense. The aftermath of 9/11 was a very confusing and dangerous time, in which patriotic fervor swelled and fingers pointed in every which direction. Tackling the issue by putting a spotlight on the grim reality, on everyday people, rather than costumed heroes, was tasteful for their audience. But it's been 23 years. All the never forgets and stand togethers aside, this concept is a bit goofy in context. Right? Like, I'm not crazy for this. It's a tragedy no matter how you slice it. 3,000 people lost their lives. But New York City, of all places, is jam-packed full of superheroes. It's the one place in the entire universe where you'll find the highest concentration of them. And these ain't no Great Lakes Avengers heroes. We're talking Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, sometimes. Plenty of people who can fly, or at least get up high enough. Spider sense is a thing, and sure, there may be arguments that it's only imminent danger to Peter. But you're telling me nothing lit up on Reed Richards' screen, like beep 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 plane inbound for Twin Towers? Doctor Strange doesn't have like the orb of pondering that would warn him thousands of people are about to die? The first plane hit World Trade Center 1 at 8:46 a.m. The second plane hit World Trade Center 2 at 9:03 a.m. I can accept that they somehow didn't see the first plane coming, or have time to stop it. But the towers didn't start collapsing until 9:59 a.m. They had 17 minutes to get on site and prepare for a second plane, and then nearly an hour after that to put the fires out and stabilize it. They had so much time to work with. And I'm not a comics expert, so I can't cite all these specific examples, but I know Spidey could have done something. Spider-Man issue 31. Peter lifts these massive chunks of machinery off himself. Spider-Man Homecoming, which is a weaker version than the comics, holds a boat together while it's sinking with his webs alone. I believe that Spidey alone could have at least held them together long enough to evacuate more people. All the superheroes in NYC working together, they wouldn't have fallen. But more contentious than this is this page right here. Magneto and Doctor Doom show up because some things surpass rivalries and borders. Victor even sheds a tear for the tragedy. Mind you, back in Infinity Gauntlet, half the universe had just died. Billions, possibly trillions dead, and the planet collapsing beneath them. Doom mentions that his people have died too. But what's on his mind? Is he crying? Is he putting aside his differences? Hell no! We see him gloating about how this could be an opportunity, arguing that he should lead the team to stop Thanos, dealing with a tragedy that, no offense, is many thousands times worse than 9/11. He can only care about himself. That ain't Dr. Doom, that's Dr. Don't. And Magneto has tried many times to kill all of humanity, or at least kill a lot of it. I won't get into the whole mutant politics thing because he kinda has a point most of the time. But you're telling me he's bothered by 9/11? What, were the towers full of mutants? But okay. Let's assume neither a city full of superheroes nor America-loving supervillains could stop the towers from falling. Even given an hour, where do they go from there? Nowhere? Strange. An event that feels very similar happened years later. The destruction of Stamford, Connecticut. Amateur superheroes engaged someone above their pay grade, and in an instant, 600 people were wiped off the map. It's believable, and we see the superhero community come together to help the survivors and do damage control. Guess who wasn't fucking there? Dr. Doom and Magneto! They didn't give a shit like they did in New York. The ripple effects of Stamford are long-lasting, stretching out over years. A civil war happens. Half the Avengers become illegal for a while. Heroes get killed, etc. The world feels like it's changed due to the effects of superheroes. I, for one, think that history and culture would dramatically change if we had people in spandex flying around and throwing cars. Especially if supervillains threaten to cause events on par or even greater than 9/11 on the regular. Aliens constantly visit the planet. You have super scientists building spaceships and time machines to go anywhere in the universe. People getting resurrected left and right. treating death as an inconvenience. And yet, for the general public, the world of Marvel still reflects ours. The bad things that happen out here will still happen in there, because it's frowned upon to have superheroes solve our problems for us. We still need to be inspired to believe that anyone could become a hero, so long as that means fighting crime and nothing much else. Anything more serious, and suddenly it's too complicated for the Avengers to get involved in. Status quo is king, and the worlds of comics will always invariably return to it. Individual pieces may move around and never line up the same way, but generally, they'll all return back to their original place. It's a forever war between superheroes and supervillains, with no sign of dramatic widespread change. In our world, things suck, and have sucked for a long time. For the average American comic reader, it may seem like the world adheres to a status quo of its own, but that very much isn't true. The world is chaotic, constantly shifting. Mainly for the worse, seems like, but occasionally for the better. New opportunities open up, paths for peace and prosperity. And you'd think in the world of Marvel, where the impossible is possible, they'd be able to get a bit closer to utopia than we can. But if there was no conflict to write about, comic companies would be broke. So, things have to stay in an endless cycle, going nowhere fast. Anyway, comics are messy, and oftentimes, storylines are written with no regards for world building or a larger narrative. ASM 36 was a one-off tribute to the victims and first responders of 9/11. But it's still a canon part of Marvel, and put into context with everything else, it feels bizarre. By superhero standards, it was just another day on the job, the likes of which they've stopped hundreds of times. And yet, they somehow couldn't. Even the civilians in the comic are asking that question. Wait, this can't be. All this evidence, these loose ends. It's almost too convenient no one was there to stop it. Well-known supervillains were spotted on sight? Cyclops had to use his heat vision to cut through the steel beams. How could the jet fuel melt them? Answer the questions, Spidey! The people won't be kept in the dark! The superheroes were in on it! The superheroes...